Once we've done our research and gathered our ideas, it's time to take those ideas and organize them. So there's ways we can organize our information. One way we can do that is to get a sequence, placing ideas in a sequence, a strategic sequence to help readers understand relationships. If your message isn't organized, it's going to be hard for your readers to follow and to figure out what exactly is important. And if they get confused when reading the message, they're just going to either stop reading it, they're going to be frustrated, and they're not going to get the message. So poor organization is one of the greatest failing of business writers. So we have got to get those ideas organized. So the two ways that your book discusses is making lists and outlines. So if it's just a simple message, you may just jot down a list, a scratch list of topics you're going to cover, and then make the message from that scratch list. And if it's more of a longer message or a complex message, you will probably want to do an outline. And this way you can organize your ideas and really just stick to that outline. So business documents contain typical components that are arranged in traditional strategies. So your textbook discusses your format for these different documents. And I really like this figure in the textbook because it's showing you your typical components in business outlines. See, you have email, memos, and letters. For those, you usually just have an opening, body, and a closing. But if it's more of a procedure you're explaining, you're going to break those down into steps. If it's a report that provides information, you will just do an introduction, facts, and then summarize. If it's an analytical report, you're going to first have an introduction and kind of introduce the problem, then talk about your findings, have a conclusion, and then a recommendation if you're supposed to provide that. And then a proposal. This is pretty formal. You're going to have an introduction, a proposed solution, a staffing, the schedule, cost, and authorization. So you can see here that the flow and the outlines are going to be different based on what your report or what kind of message you're delivering. So this slide is basically that graphic that I just went over. So there's two strategies that are used for business messages. Either the direct strategy or the indirect. With the direct, you're going to put the main idea first and then give the details and explanations after. For the indirect strategy, the main idea is going to be last. It's going to be after the details, explanation, and evidence. So direct strategy, you're getting straight to the point. The strategy that you're going to select is going to depend on how you think the audience will react to the message. So the direct method is also called the front loading, where you're getting right to the point. And there are advantages of using front loading because if you get right to the point, you're saving your readers time and it sets a proper frame of mind, and your reader's less likely to become frustrated, because if you've ever had a message, you may think you're reading it and you may think, just get to the point. I always think about recipes, like on Pinterest. If you see a recipe and there's this long article and you just want to go straight to the recipe, you may select the option jump to the recipe and skip all of the paragraphs. Front loading is where the recipe would be immediately there. What you need is at the very beginning. Typical messages, business messages, are going to follow the direct strategy, and these messages are your routine requests and responses, your orders and acknowledgments, your non-sensitive memos, emails, informational reports, and informational oral presentations. You're going to use the direct strategy. So when do you use the indirect? Well, when you think the audience is going to be uninterested, unwilling, displeased, or even hostile, the indirect strategy is going to be more appropriate. So when do you use it? If you're delivering bad news, if you're delivering an idea that's going to take a little bit of persuasion for them to buy into it, or if you're delivering sensitive news, you're going to want to use the indirect strategy. Here's the benefits of the indirect strategy. You're going to respect the feelings of the audience. It facilitates fair hearing because you're going to explain before you deliver the news, and it's going to minimize a negative reaction. So when do you use this? Messages could be developed indirectly. It could be an email if it's something that's going to be an email that's going to maybe have some bad news. Memos, letters that refuse requests, deny claims, and disapprove credit. So anytime there's some negative news to deliver, you want to use the indirect strategy. And then persuasive requests, sales letters, sensitive messages. Some reports and oral presentations may also benefit from the indirect strategy. So hopefully now you understand the differences in direct and indirect, and you understand the advantages to those and when to use those. So let me know if you have any questions about this section.